Dragon Quest is legendary. It took a niche genre, streamlined it, and launched it spearhead first into the mainstream. The RPGs that came before Dragon Quest were for the absolute hardcore. Games like Ultima and Wizardry were huge, complex, and obtuse. Dragon Quest would retain the epic and majestic feeling of those games, but made the gameplay a lot more accessible. Dragon Quest would go on to spawn direct sequels and spin-offs along with influencing the console RPG genre as a whole. A year later, Square's Final Fantasy and Sega's Phantasy Star would be released just 2 days apart from each other. This trio of games is truly what solidified the console RPG genre as something different yet familiar when compared with those computer RPGs of the early 80s. By today's standards, Dragon Quest can be a hard play. Uneven difficulty, obfuscated objectives, and some unintuitive gameplay can be difficult sells in 2023. But despite all of this, I think it remains an important part of RPG history. It helped pave the way for genre titans. It dared to reinvent the wheel, and it succeeded. Countless games were inspired by it, and even more games attempted to rip it off and failed. So today we are going all the way back to 1986, holy cow that was so long ago, to kill some metal slimes and get lost in a cave because you only brought one torch and you're too low level to have learned Radiant. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress, and this is Dragon Quest, sometimes called Dragon Warrior. Dragon Quest was brought to life in 1986 by Chunsoft and released by Enix on the Nintendo Family Computer, MSX, MSX2, and PC 9801 in Japan. It was later localized as Dragon Warrior in North America in 1989 by Nintendo. The name change was due to TSR, aka the Dungeons & Dragons people, having a trademark for the name Dragon Quest. I'm surprised there wasn't a trademark for Dragon Warrior either. It sounds like the name of a Manowar live album. Enix began its life as Idansha Boshu Service Center to sell tabloids. This venture failed, so the company rebranded as Enix, a video game developer. This happened a lot in Japan in the 80s. That economic boom saw lots of companies try to get a slice of that delicious video game pie. The new company began searching for talent by putting out contests to win employment by showcasing applicants' video game making skills. Sounds absolutely bonkers to me, but it worked. One of these early hires was Yuji Horii, a writer at super popular manga serial Shonen Jump. He gained employment with Enix by creating a game called Love Love Tennis, but as an avid fan of role-playing games, he wanted to make an RPG. Horii was directly responsible for many of the game's design choices. He understood that RPGs had a high barrier of entry and wanted to bring it down a bit for the more casual players. So he came up with a number of ways to make Dragon Quest more accessible than the big CRPGs that inspired it. The addition of an overhead camera for traversing the world was to help new players orient themselves better. The camera would change to that classic first-person view during battle scenes. The overworld was massive for the time and had lots to explore. To help players further orientate themselves on the map, the final dungeon is viewable from the default area. This is a means to give the player perspective on where to go, but not how to get there. To help get eyes on the new game, veteran mangaka Akira Toriyama was hired to do the art. As Horii wanted the game to appeal to a broader audience, he felt that Toriyama's colorful and creative artwork would help this. Toriyama's original Dragon Ball, without the Z, was very popular at the time, and having him on board would surely help get the project out to more people. Or so he thought. Now it's the part of the video where we talk about the story, and this section will be very sparse because this story for this game can be summed up as go kill the Dragon Lord and maybe rescue the princess as well if you feel like it, but you don't have to if you don't want to. That's it. It might sound like hyperbole, but that is the story. You are the descendant of Erdrick. The king asks you to kill the Dragon Lord because he's doing bad guy stuff. The king asks you to rescue the princess, but you don't even have to rescue the princess. You can just kill the Dragon Lord, and that's it. There are lots of NPCs to talk to, but not a lot is added to the story by doing so. Most NPCs give you cryptic hints on how to progress. One girl really wants to sell you tomatoes, but in the Japanese version, she really wants to sell you Puff Puff. Oh hell yeah. The princess is being held captive by a green dragon in a cave connecting the two chunks of the overworld. You can miss her if you beeline straight through the cave, or you can straight up ignore her. There's really nothing more to it. If you do rescue her, you get some dialogue and she gives you an item that tells you what the XY axes on the map are, but other than that, nothing really comes of it. When you get to the Dragon Lord, he gives you the choice to join him and rule the world with him, but if you do say yes, all you get is the text turning red and then game over. It's nice that they give you the illusion of choice. Really, thanks guys. Trudge through that hard as hell final dungeon only to get game over by a dialogue trap. Real cool stuff. And if you want character growth, there is none. The only real recurring characters are the hero, a silent protagonist, the Dragon Lord, who has 4 lines of dialogue, the princess, who, like I said, can be skipped, and the king, who becomes a glorified save point after his initial dialogue has been completed. Whoops, welcome to 1986. And that's it! The gameplay in Dragon Quest is as basic as you can imagine, and that's a good thing. It's pretty easy to dive into. Like an adventure game, it has a context menu used to do just about everything. This menu can be used to talk to people, check your stats, ascend or descend stairs, search, cast spells, use items, open doors, and take from treasure chests. Most of this could be done with just one button, but these were the ancient times when dinosaurs ruled the land. Having a context menu was great for helping newcomers understand what they could do in this vibrant fantasy world. The game was not a fast run and jump like Mario. Dragon Quest is all about taking it slow and investigating every nook and cranny of this fantastic realm. When you start up the adventure, you are level 1 with a small amount of gold. After you leave the castle, the first thing you will see is the Dragon Lord's castle and the town of Tantagel. You can't access the Dragon Lord's castle right away, so you can visit Tantagel and do lots of town stuff. Talk to NPCs for hints, stay at the inn to recover HP, buy gear and items, lament not having any magic keys to access areas behind magic doors. Towns in Dragon Quest are great fun because there's only a few of them and they all have something interesting to do. You'll find that each town usually has some hidden items or areas, usually something story related to push the narrative forward. Usually, go get this thing so you can go get that thing, so you can go here so you can get this thing so you can win the game. Shops have gear, as you would expect, upgrades for your weapon and armor. Sometimes they are things that you can immediately afford, but sometimes you will randomly bump into gear that is incredibly out of your price range that is super powerful, prompting you to revisit later on after you've picked up some extra funds. The only healing item is an herb, which becomes practically useless pretty fast. Plus the limited item space is going to be filled up with more important items anyway. Now you do have a heal spell and a host of other spells to help you stay alive though, and for such an old game, just about all of the spells are actually useful. Your heal spells and your hurt spells are self-explanatory. Radiant lights up a cave like a torch but with a wider circumference. Sleep puts enemies to sleep and actually works on a lot of them, etc, etc. These are real simple spells, but they add a bit of interest to a pretty straightforward adventure. Now let's talk about grinding. You're gonna do it, and you're gonna do it a lot. You need a lot of experience and you need a lot of money, so you need to kill a lot of slimes and other beasties to get where you need to go. The legends of Dragon Quest's grind-heavy adventure are all true. This game requires dedicated monster killing time. Comparing it to Final Fantasy or Phantasy Star though, the grind is a lot more manageable, as in Dragon Quest you only have the 1 party member, opposed to the other game's 4 party members. Adventuring around the world is very much what you make of it. If you love obtuse hints and tips that are somewhat unclear, this is definitely the game for you. If you are on a time limit or don't have 100 hours to burn, you might not get along with DQ. As a child with no job and no life, I absolutely loved just rocking around the countryside, investigating every corner of the map. I joyed in battling every single monster and soaking up every single experience point I could find. As an adult with a job job and responsibilities, I can't imagine I would ever be on board for something this obtuse. But I have everything memorized from when I was a kid, so I managed to rush through this game in like 10 hours or whatever. Akira Toriyama's art really brings something to this game. The majority of the graphics in this game are very basic. The overworld, town, and dungeon graphics are roughly on par with the old Ultima games, but Toriyama's colorful and cartoony monster designs really bring some personality to this game. I love basic old RPG graphics. They really force you to work your imagination bone, and that can be really rewarding. But Toriyama's monster designs are just fantastic, really captivating, and they add something a bit more tangible to the game, something that casual gamers can grab onto. Also, I've noticed that there is this weird stat system thing that I don't quite understand, but it is based around your character's stats being influenced by the character's name. As you can see, I named my guy Link. This gives him some good early game stat growth for his agility. Whether this was an implemented system or a weird bug, I don't know. I just wish I could rename Gwaelin to be Zelda, just to complete the set. Dragon Quest Legacy begins with not being super popular. Okay, so the formula didn't immediately strike gold. Initial sales were not great. They weren't terrible, but they didn't point to the cash cow that Enix was hoping for. Thankfully, Yuji Horii was still writing for Shonen Jump at the time and levied a little bit of nepotism to write several articles about the game in the pages of the serial. Oops! Well, it turned out to be beneficial as sales did eventually start to pick up. Dragon Quest wasn't released in North America until 1989, and once again was not super popular. RPGs were definitely not well sought after in NA at the time, so Dragon Quest did not do so well initially. But worry not, Nintendo decided to give away the game with a subscription to Nintendo Power, and this facilitated a spike of popularity in the title and the genre. But it was a boost in popularity for a free game, so it's not like Enix made a lot of money out of it, at least immediately. By this time in Japan, Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star had both hit and console RPGs were starting to pick up steam. These three games, all deeply inspired by Ultima and Wizardry, were starting to wake up RPG fever in the brains of the Japanese people, and it was glorious. People were jazzed, and Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and Phantasy Star all started releasing sequels in quick succession. RPG madness was finally here, at least in Japan. It took a little bit longer for it to hit the rest of the world. Over the years, Dragon Quest has been re-released several times. It was re-released alongside Dragon Quest II on the SNES and the Game Boy Color in 1993 in both Japan and North America. It was re-released alongside Dragon Quest II and III on the Wii in 2011, but just in Japan. And it was remade as an Android port in 2013 as a worldwide ? Release. Worldwide sales of the Famicom and NES versions, along with all of these re-releases, is well over 5 million copies. I can't find any sales numbers for the MSX, MSX2, or the PC 9801 games, but I can't imagine that they add much more to this number. Sorry MSX, MSX2, and PC 9801 fans, I'm not trying to disrespect your favorite consoles, but in the long run, I can't see these sales being that huge. Dragon Quest has gone on to become an absolutely legendary series. It has spawned 10 mainline sequels, many spin-offs, toys, a movie, and much, much more. The Dragon Quest series is absolutely humongous, and I can't see it ever going away. Its popularity is well established, and its appeal to old and new generations cannot be denied. And it all started with this humble little game. For one, I still absolutely love it. Not just the game, but the series as a whole. There is this familiar feeling with every single game that makes me feel warm and happy inside. This little nostalgic thread that flows back through time and is nestled deep inside the first game. Follow-ups to a series like Final Fantasy feel unfamiliar, and follow-ups to a series like Persona kinda forget the original games, but Dragon Quest holds on to that identity. As someone who is definitely starting to feel the ravages of time, my knees, my back, my anxiety attack, a bit of nostalgia goes a long way to making me feel happy. And Dragon Quest makes me feel happy. It's like an 8-bit hug, a warm and fuzzy 8-bit cat curled up on your lap. It's just a good familiar romp around a world that needs Magidrake stomped and tomatoes to be enjoyed. It's a warts and all kind of thing. It's a little bit old and a little bit crusty, but so am I. There are better Dragon Quests. Dragon Quest XI might be one of my favorite modern games. Everything about it is really tight and really refined. But there's something old and powerful about that first game. Something beyond nostalgia. Dragon Quest is a hell of a game that has inspired so much inside this genre, and I can't wait to play it again. Here we are, it's the end of the video. I had a lot of fun revisiting this one. Just an absolute rush of nostalgia juice, adrenaline. I hope you guys enjoyed the review as much as I enjoyed the game. Did you ever play the original Dragon Quest? And if you did you finish it? Leave a comment below. And if you want to help out the channel, there's a lot you can do to help if you want to. You can like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment, check out our Discord, check out our Patreon, buy a shirt, send me high-res English fan-translated scans of all of the OG Phantasy Star World books, eat a coffee crisp, acknowledge that the sun is a blazing torch of suffering, hydrate, really hydrate, try to have a nice day, and go watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. It's really, really good. For RPG Fortress, I've been Richard, and I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. See you next time, and don't forget to hug a cat. See you later.